Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 9 of The Next Perfect Step. Today, we're going to mix it up on you and give you a tongue twister. It is Lori, and Lauren today. So I'll pass it over to Lori to introduce Lauren.
Thank you. Yeah, we're so excited to have my good friend Lauren Durso with us today. Lauren is an entrepreneur, inspiring people to live their best lives by educating them about wellness, movement, and mindfulness. She's an experienced 500-hour registered yoga, meditation, and mindfulness instructor. She teaches clients in group classes or one-on-one, while concurrently working full-time as a health and wellness instructor at an alternative education school for neurodivergent and behavior challenged middle and high school students. Lauren's specialty is working with tweens and teens, teaching life skill coping tools through movement, breathing, and mindfulness and meditation techniques, helping them reduce stress, anxiety, and dis-ease. I love that. That's such a needed service. So thank you for doing that for our teens and tweens. I mean, that's fantastic.
Thanks, Lori.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. Sure. I really appreciate, very grateful for this opportunity to be with you both and the community that is watching in.
Great. Thank you. So I thought we'd ask you to just begin maybe centering with a little bit of mindful technique or meditation, if you'd like to do that.
Absolutely. I think I always say I can describe and talk about what I do, but truly the experience having that, actually applying it is the best way. So, and it's perfect. It grounds us into this space together too. Great. So I would, if you're comfortable, so if people are listening, if they're watching, either way, just allowing the eyes to either drop from the screen or close the eyes completely, if that feels comfortable. And I will just be walking and talking us through this centering few minutes, just to begin to connect into the present moment. And the tool that will help assist us in doing that is connecting with some intentional breathing. So just start to take a few inhales and exhales without thinking about it, without trying to do anything with that. Just feeling the natural flow of your breath. And as you are exhaling, just notice if you can drop your shoulders another 10%. And as you inhale, see if you can, whatever position you're in, seated or standing, just feel yourself lengthening through the spine, up through the top of the head. Again, another 10% as you inhale, lengthening. And as you exhale, allowing those shoulders to drop. And just beginning to connect with a longer exhale to your inhale. So if you'd like to count that, you can follow for a few rounds with me. We'll be inhaling, 2, 3, pause. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause and release the breath. Repeating that, inhaling, 2, 3, pause. Exhaling, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause. Release the breath. Inhale, 2, 3, pause. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause. Release the breath. And continue that 2 more times, listening to your own counts, feeling your own breath. Taking your time with your breath. Listening to that intuitive flow of your breathing. And when you finish that second round, with the exhale, the pause, and the release, if you're comfortable, place one hand right in the center of your chest into that heart chakra energy point. And then bring one thing that you're grateful for into this heart-mind space. And see how you feel when you think about this thing, this person, this place, whatever it is. Feel that gratitude come into every single cell of your body. Take one more deep breath into that heart space. On a big exhale that could be audible, allow yourself to release into that grateful heart. And just gently opening the eyes if they're closed, releasing the hand from the chest. And we welcome ourselves back into the shared space.
Thank you, Lauren. That was beautiful. I feel very calm and centered. Thank you. So
I call it the quick fix on the fly, right? Center into the moment. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. So is that some of the things that you do with your teens and tweens, helping them to center, relax?
Absolutely. I think especially I still consider the world in kind of a healing space, the ripple of post-COVID, when we were in, even though we're moving out of it into, 3 years now, but there's still, it really took a toll on our central nervous system, right, as a whole in the world. And to connect people, whether they're tweens and teens and through adults, connect people back into that simple tool of their breath, just to get them physically connected into who they are in that specific moment. And the reason why is because so many people live with that space either in the past or in the future of worry, which cycles into anxiety, which can cycle into depression, which can cycle into what I call more of a low vibe state of being. And when we simply stop what we're doing, and I use the language pause intentionally versus hold your breath, because when we hold, we're still in that contracted tightness. And I'm really, I teach people to move into more of a flow, right? Keeping that energy fluid and moving through our body. So we can just pause, breathe, and connect into that present state. And teaching tweens and teens the idea of being grateful for something, that to me, in my experience for myself and in teaching others, is truly, I explain, you cannot be in that low vibe, more of what I call fear, can't be in that low vibe state when you're in a place of gratitude, right? So, and I wish I knew that when I was a teenager or a teenager. I would have lived a much healthier young adult life for sure. So I guess that's I mean, people call it, oh, this is your niche. And I call it what you want it, but I guess my true calling is to help a younger generation learn these tools. So when they are more of a grown adult, they will already be ahead of the game to either not be at a level of stress and anxiety or depression or, whatever those lifestyles might present themselves, right? So they can take a different course. And our kids, the kids that I see in the world today, are super stressed. They are living with a very high, thick, what I call thick level of energetic weight, right? A lot of what they worry, and they're carrying a lot of stuff from their own experience and from their environments. So if I can lighten that load, literally, metaphorically, and teach them some of these skills, that is truly where I'm directing my energy to, and with personally and professionally these days. Yeah.
Wonderful. So what other tools do you use? I mean, I agree with you. My heart goes out to these young people. I've seen it and I know how stressed and anxiety ridden that they can be. And it just breaks my heart. But to have you do this work is just amazing. And I thank you for that. And I know you have other tools that you use, and you've been, how do you do that?
100%. So I guess it depends on the, it's all relative to if I'm working one-to-one with clients. So I see, I've worked with, I'd say my youngest client right now is 9 years old. And I've worked with kids that are seniors in high school and beyond. And as you know, Lori T. and Lori Mullen, you may not know that just this past summer I was working in they call a hardware facility. So it's a lockdown juvenile detention center. So I was working with 14 young men that were in jail, and applying these wellness and energy tools, what I call through the back door. I don't necessarily say, okay, we're going to do energy work right now, right? So I did a similar breath work with them, and really incorporating movement in their body, right? So I want them to, and I always explain why. We're clearing out that cortisol, we're clearing out the stress response, right? So, and by doing that, they named it their Superman breathing, right? And I love that. I had another, excuse me, I worked with another young girl who was 12 years old, getting bullied. Her grandmother, who I know, and along with the girl's mother, they contacted me to just help her move through these really challenging times, right? So I did that same centering breath that I just did with us, and she named it her mountain breathing, because she would do it standing, and I would teach her how to be in her posture and grounded. So the tools that I offer it's like speaking a language, right? It's the same word. It's how the dialect, right? How it comes out is relative to the population I'm teaching. So if it's a group of 14 boys in jail, I'm going to make it relative in language, that might be more relatable to them than I would a 12-year-old young woman or young girl, really, right? And then my 18-year-old high school girl that's, minimal affect and has a lot of bundled energy, I'm going to approach it a little differently in the language, but the same tool. So, and that's how I apply it. What I found is I started out my what I call my wellness career teaching kids yoga before kids yoga was a thing. I literally would call up different local recreation departments, said, do you want to bring in kids yoga? Well, what's that? I'm like, exactly. Let's bring it in, right? So I started with kids. I evolved into adults. I still teach adults as well. And it's basically the concepts that I teach kids, tweens and teens. It's all applicable to teaching adults. It's all just, it's language. So the other tool, my go-tos, I say, are exactly the language we use, the things that we say out into the world, and what we're saying internally to ourselves. So much of that, I would, like, for instance, working with the kids in the jail, every day I had a quote, and it would create discussion, right? So the one that, there were two that were really favorites, and if you think you can and you think you can't, you're right. Right. And we would dissect that, right? If you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right. Right. So I would start to teach them about that, you know. And then the other was, every action you take is a vote for the person you want to become. So I would talk to them about what are the actions that you're taking that are putting you into a mindset, a place where who you want to be. And they called it the outside, right? You were either inside the jail or you were outside. So similarly with the tweens, you know, helping a young girl with a mantra, I am strong, I am, you know, we said, I am strong, I am beautiful, I am ready. And that's what would get her ready every day before she got on the bus to deal with the girls, to cope with the girls that were bullying her. And she just would do that, right? And I would give them, so using the language, right? So using centering, breathing, using language. And then my other go-to is, again, anything I teach, I've used personally, right? I feel that that's the most authentic source of where it's coming from. And the third go-to tool is EFT, emotional freedom technique, also known as tapping, right? And I teach it the way I was taught. So, I explain to the kids or to adults, why are we doing this? When you have the why behind it, then there's something, like, we all learn differently, right? So some people don't care why we're doing it. I'll just do it, right? I trust you, LD. I'll trust you. I'll do it. Okay. Or you know, with the kids that were in jail, but they didn't know me, and why did they have any reason to trust me, right? So I call it, I've coined it for myself, moving your molecules, right? I personally, as a friend says, I'm allergic to exercising. I don't exercise doesn't speak to me, but moving your body 100%, right? Taking care of yourself from the inside out. That I can wrap my head around. So I do things to move the molecules, move the cellular structure in the body. So I teach them tapping points. I was doing a version of Qigong with them. But again, that tactile touch, so I'd have, by the end of the 5 weeks that I was with the boys in the detention center, I mean, they would just start doing things, right, on their own. They would just start the tapping. They would just start, or they would cue each other, like, you need to do some Superman breathing, right? And that is how I feel. You know, I teach a tool, and then I want go viral with it, right? Teach each other. And so those are my 3 go-tos. These are the 3 that I'm teaching a hybrid, both in person and simultaneously by Zoom. I'm calling it Settle into September, right? Kind of the energy of September, when we switch from more of those long sunny days in summer, you know, into different schedules, right? And even if whether you have kids or not, or going back to school, you know, into a different work routine, whatever it is, wherever you are personally in your life, you're still around that energy. And some people hold a very high frequency, frenetic, I call it, right? Kind of like, and they're always, to me, I find the language, that with other working moms, or, I'm crazy busy. I hear it all the time. And in fact, it's like a nerve to me, like, oh, and I just start to say, how about start to flip that to gratefully busy. I'm gratefully busy because you chose to have kids and work or be an entrepreneur, right? So we can create our crazy or we can create our calm. And that's, I look to those tools of language, tapping, centering, breathing. For me, it's meditation, and then adding in that movement of molecules to, I say, you course correct the central nervous system. Yeah. And I think,
Yeah, I think it's so important. I think it's awesome that you're giving these tools to the younger generation, because there's so many adults that are walking around. I mean, you feel it all the time. You see it all the time. People are stressed and full of anxiety. And of course our kids are. That's all they see in the world is fear and anxiety and stress. And everybody like this, our nervous systems are shot. And I think it's so awesome that kids, and there's more people like you who are teaching these tools to give them a new way to do things, a new way to think. And we can learn this at any age. But I think it's awesome that kids are even learning now. Because when we were younger, when our parents were younger, the only tool we had was to numb it, right? Drugs, alcohol, whatever, de-stress, let's go have a drink. I mean, that was the tool that was out there. That's what we were taught from our parents. Oh, you wanted to stress, go have a drink, sit down. And now we have a new opportunity to do things healthier and better and in a new way. And I think it's just awesome that kids are learning these tools to help them cope even younger, instead of building it up and adding more stress that we didn't know how to release.
Completely. Yeah, you guys touch so many great points, Lori, with that. I always say, want to stay ahead of the game, right? So we don't, like you read, Lori, so we don't get to that point of dis-ease, right? Which is the same word as disease. As we age, it's disease. And even for young kids, right? You see it in the amount of, how highly medicated, and I'm not, and I believe there's a place for Western medicine for sure. Physiologically, our bodies sometimes need that jump start, right? For the chemicals to release the endorphins and the serotonin that we want, without it being necessarily a substance that's doing, like you said, the numbing, right? And one thing that's very important to me when I do work with, especially private clients, whoever has contacted me to work with their kid because their kid has anxiety, like apples don't fall far from trees, and I am not in a medical position to diagnose. I am a mom of 2 teenage girls, and I was raised by someone who was extremely high anxiety, right? So I had to learn how to unprogram that. But so when I work with a one-to-one client, I make sure that adult, whoever is hiring me, understands it's a team. They are part of a team unit. I separate out how I work with the client. And I always have the kids, I'll bring in that adult who has hired me and have the client, the youth client, explain to that adult, what did we do today and why, right? And I honestly, if I had a statistic, I would say 95% of the time when that kid explains what bubble breathing is, same thing that we did, right? Just a bubble breathing or the tapping, and their adult who's in their life does it, or they have an aha moment. They're like, I really need this. They're like, yeah, you do. Right. So in order for that youth to feel better, live better, well, it has to be modeling as well. And that is the thing, right? So everything that I give to the private clients or in a group setting, I'm always making sure, like, he or she cannot do this on their own, right? You have to be part of this team. Think of it as a team of wellness underneath this roof of yours, or however that the caregiving is being given for that person.
Yeah, the ripple effect, right? So they learn it, and now they're sharing it with their adult, and they're all getting the tools. And then they go to a friend's house, and she's having, or he's having, or they're having a difficult, stressed day, and they get to share that tool with somebody else. And that's just amazing.
100%.
Eventually, it ripples out to everyone, and we all have
Yeah.
new tools.
Yes, 100%. I mean, and I'm super excited to be starting a full-time teaching position. So in addition, as an entrepreneur, with my Lauren Durso Wellness, I also do work a full-time position for the necessities right now as a single mom, and having that income and benefits, insurance, and all that good stuff that entrepreneur life doesn't always offer. But I think it works itself out. But I'm really excited to go into, because I learn just as much from my clients and my classes as they are from me, right? So I can go in with a plan. Oh, I'm going to teach X, Y, and Z today. But depending on where those kids are at on any given day, that's what I, have to be able to pull out of my back pocket. Okay, we're going to put those 3 tools on the shelf for today. And now I'm going to teach you this, right? And it could be simply laying on the ground with your legs against a wall, right? Legs up the wall is what it's called. And again, telling them, okay, by turning ourselves upside down, things can turn right side up again, right? So, I mean, if I had a gym class that was teaching me more of restorative yoga, we don't have to call it that. I'm just going to call, I'll give it the name that feels right for that group. But it's the quiet down. It's the upside down, quiet down, right? And if kids are learning legs up the wall, which supports the lymphatic system and supports their immune system and chills them out pretty instantaneously. Okay, that is something that they can take, into their lives, right? As well as, like you just said, when they're doing it, they're going to be modeling it for someone somewhere. I love when I used to teach a younger group of kids. They're kindergarten, first grade. And I remember this one little boy would come in and he'd be zipping around, just running like the little Jack Russell dog, right? And I was fine, good, get that energy out. And by the end, and his mom was apologizing, and I'm so sorry, and trying. I said, no, I got him. You go do your whatever you're gonna do for the next 45 minutes. Come back, and by the end, he was completely in what we call, our resting shavasana, or just literally laying still, right? So here's this 5-year-old laying still, that's. And it wasn't for 10 minutes, but it still was enough that was resetting his central nervous system, right? And then she would come in and be like, yeah, the kids were telling me to do your bubble breathing, Mom. Right? And she didn't know what the heck is that, right? What's bubble breathing? Well, it's the breath. It's similar to the breath work we began the session with, right? But here's kindergarten and first grade cueing their mother, who's right, that tightly wound in that state of constricted tightness, physically, mentally, maybe emotionally, and what we're discussing, right? Her energy is coming off onto them, that they're saying, hey, you gotta do some bubble breathing, right? That, to me, that's the priceless ripple effect that I hope to continue, with the teachings that I do. Yeah.
I love how you
that's
make
awesome.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, when somebody can't sit even for 2 minutes, right? They're running around and running around, and then they get a chance to calm down and be present, even like you said, for 2 minutes. And then next time it's 5 minutes. And then the more that their body says, oh, this is okay, and it becomes more and more and more, which is just awesome. Yeah.
And I know, Laura, you had something before Laura said, but before I lose my thought, I think, especially working working and teaching kids that are already coming from what I describe as broken and trauma-based environments. These kids need to be seen. Simply, like when I say seen, like I see you, I want to know your name. I don't need to know why or where or how you got into where you are, but I want to help. I want to teach who I see today, on this Wednesday, and go from there, and teach them that, again, those two quotes: if you think you can and you think you can't, you're right, and imprint that. I call it, to me, it's faith, it's grace with a capital G. It's imprinting. When I say faith in themselves, right, it's building up a level of confidence and self-esteem that might be completely foreign, that no one may have ever had in them, or maybe they've had it, but it's been a while, or they need it on a consistent basis, right? And that goes for anyone, truly. We all, who doesn't like to hear a compliment, right? And how often do we receive them or give them, right? That's something I try to do. If I'm like, oh, what a pretty blah, 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 in my head, I'm like, no, say it, right? Tell that person, right? You look great today. That's a great color on you, right? Like, why do we keep this? Because that's the stuff, that's the language that can, in time, also clear out the cortisol and have that positive ripple. Yeah.
I love how you say that, that the kids need to be seen. And also they are seeing themselves now, like they're aware of themselves. They're aware of what's going on and what they can do. They have tools that they can take with them every single day and do self-care. And that's just, that's so fantastic. Yeah.
It's huge. Right? I would do, it was just a way I would harness, kind of structure my class, and I would give them a piece of paper and just do a check-in, like anonymous, just write a number, or confidential rather. I knew who it was, right? But they weren't sharing it. I wasn't sharing it, but I just do a check-in, 1 to 5. Where are you feeling today? And like rate that number, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, and why. Just so I could get a sense, I'm feeling a 2 today, really tired, didn't sleep well, didn't get breakfast, didn't make it down for breakfast, whatever. And there were kids that would tell me, oh, I did that. I did our Superman breathing. I call it rectangular breathing. I use a visual of a rectangle. And that helped me sleep last night. Great. Great. That's the goal, right? So so they, we can talk about all these things that we know that can help people live their best day on any given day, but until people actually experience it themselves and then continue to do it, that's when it really has the effect. Because how many books or podcasts or whatever are out there, and that's what I'm still navigating. Like, okay, how can I get this information out there to people? And I believe, and this is what I love about this, it was super organic. Lauren and I have been in touch, but nothing about let's do a podcast, and then a spot opened up. I'm like, great, perfect. Right. Okay. So this is a check of like, okay, this is another resource, another tool of how to get this stuff out there, right, to someone who's watching it or hearing it, or could pass it on to someone that's like, hey, you know what, my niece is really stressed. Maybe, I can put her in touch with so-and-so. Yeah.
So important. It's so important. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's needed. I keep saying more than ever, how we're having this podcast, this, technology is a help and a hindrance to our lives, right? And especially, I just dropped my 18-year-old off for first year of college, and I just am like, I don't know how I would have gotten, truly, I do not know how I would have gotten through college if there was the technology that exists today. Because my ADD would have been through the roof with another distraction of texting my friends that were on the East Coast and I was, in the Midwest, or it's, it's almost, and I was receiving the text from the drop off night, she was not in a good space. And I'm like, I had to refrain myself, not restrain, but just from responding because, back in the day, when I was in college, I had to go to a payphone and drop in a quarter and make a long distance call. And, I wouldn't have been quickly saying, and yes, it was a good thing to have that touch point. At the same time, it's just the technology. When I say technology, and then you layer in all these social media factors, it's the layer that's creating such a heavy load for kids to live these days. And that even came up when I was working in the jail, because these kids have no contact, right? No access at all to a phone, and I was like, you guys, this is a healthy detox you're getting, right? A detoxification from the technology use. Like, your body is resetting itself to not have to check your Snapchat and your TikTok and your all these things. And it's another layer of constant stimulus, and that's really affecting the central nervous systems, that cellular structure in both, youth and adults. I mean, you even see, and I see toddlers walking around like, this is what's being modeled. This is how we talk to people. When you see a little toddler doing this with a telephone, I mean, it's like, it makes me unsettled. And again, these are just my opinions and my experiences. I also know there is a need. I have a couple nephews who are not verbal, and they use their technology to communicate with their parents, right? So there can be a useful, resourceful need. At the same time, it's just another piece that we navigate in the world that we live in. Why we need these tools, right? Why we need to keep these tools in not only in our toolbox, but I call it in the soup. We stir the soup and use the soup and taste the soup and use the good soup of our tools. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of bullying on social media too, which is just increased with, it's increasing the pressure and the disconnect. It's hard.
For sure. And I have a resource list that I recommend to, again, to adults that hire me for the youth clients. I give a resource page of either things that I've read or been recommended by licensed therapists. And so books, podcasts, pretty much those are the two, right? Books and podcasts, so people can either listen to it or that are designed to help parent or, caregive in this day and age with kids that are really experiencing high anxiety. Even kids, I want to say, like, you don't have to have a diagnosis, or I work with kids that are academically on point. They might be a strong athlete. Like kids that from the outside looking in they're good, they're healthy, they're normal, whatever that is, right, defined as. Yet they are the one, like, they're not sleeping well. They have an irritable digestive tract. They are feeling the pressure of keeping up with a standard that's being put on them, right? So, I call this kind of this underlying vibe or state of, I just keep using the metaphor of like, we're contracted, right? Kids are living in a fight, flight, freeze state, even if they're not in a trauma-based environment, right? And it's really important to that's why I cue the shoulders and cue the jaw to relax, because we don't even know we're living up here. It's just where you live, right? And I know I'm generalizing, right? But when we, I love the saying, a friend says all the time, when we know better, we can choose to do better. We don't always do better, but when we know better, right? So it's just creating an awareness where kids are at. There's nothing wrong with them. You know, you are living in a world that's really tightly wound. You know, even when you're on vacation and somewhere you might want to be with people, you know, there's still some level that there has to be some unwinding. So again, and that to me, Lori, is how, when you see, right, when I say that these kids need to be seen, well, just it's validating who they are, where they're at in that moment.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's so important that we become aware. I mean, most of us, our parents' generation, the generation before them, even our generation, are on autopilot, right? And we have these things like the mother with the little boy who is like, I'm so sorry he's running around. Well, that's how he's getting out his energy. Why are you sorry? There's nothing wrong with him. And I know that she didn't know that that could have came off that way, but
Right.
she's like, my kid's not fitting into the social norm. He's supposed to be sitting still quietly doing what he's told, when really, no, he shouldn't be. He is releasing his energy, but we've been taught that that's a wrong way, where we need to change that way of thinking. Like, we need to become aware we think that way, right? Like, we've bought into something that we've just bought into, and we really don't know why. Like, who is he hurting by running around? Hey, he's not running into people, running over people. He's running around, right? He's a kid. I'd love to have that, be able to release like that again, right? So
Exactly.
I love that we can give people the tools, realize that there's nothing wrong with him. Yeah, let him run around, let him get it out, and then we'll teach him a new way to come back and be able to feel comfortable sitting still, be able to release in a different way, but not because it's the norm or because it's more socially accepted, but because it might be healthier for him. And to get the adults on board who are constantly, like you said, on vacation going, stop running around, stand still for a minute. Why? They're on vacation too. Like, why do they have to be socially accepted? I mean, we're worried about what everybody around us thinks when our poor kid needs to run around and release. We need to change that for them.
Yes, I 100% agree with what you're saying, Lori, and that's where what I like too when I work in that, what I was saying, like that team unit with a client, that I had a dad reach out to me when they were on vacation and just saying, she's not doing well. I'm like, okay, well, tell me more about that. And to me, I'm totally objective, right? I'm not in it. I'm not in that. I'm not in your shoes. But I'm like, she needs a nap and food. Like, tweens and teens, they're just older toddlers, fundamentals. As an adult, we all probably need just some good nourishment and some good rest, right? And if you think about those fundamental things, right? So, and then giving the permission to exactly so with kids, I say, let's get our yayas out, right? And I just like, we shake it out, we jump, and when I was working with teaching the kids in the detention center, I said, I know when I was in school, sitting in those attached table chair, you scooch in, I'm like, that's like a cage for me with my energy. So if you need to stand, if you need to stretch, if you need to tap, this is a safe space to do that, right? So, exactly, coming back to that kid that was zipping around, I'm like, great. He needs, I used to say to my own daughter who has, ADHD, I'm like, go run the dogs. And it was her, and not in a disrespectful way, just literally go take 3 around the house. No, she wouldn't just jump up, but she would, when she did, after she ran outside and around the house, she felt better. And I gave me that reset time, right? So these are the tools, like, you know, when that I am accessible to that team, you know, for, you know, I don't have to be, you know, an hour or whatever, you know, a Zoom or an in-person session to give those tips, right? And so much of what I also teach are, yes, it's geared for that youth. In the big picture, it's for the whole family or that whole unit to incorporate, right? So I say, just because you have that, you know, I do a feelings board. Like, you may not be able to articulate how you're feeling, but you could draw it out, or you know, make flashcards to post. So it's like, okay, this is a cue for everybody. This is where I am today, right now in this moment. You can do that when you're on vacation. You can do that by writing it on a napkin, right? But sometimes when you're in it, you don't think of those creative ways to adapt a tool that I've taught you, right? So, so it's helping people move through and have those, what I call the aha moments, right? It's just, it's a touch point. So I think that's also something that's personal and unique of what I bring to my clients, you know, in my classes, you know. And again, it's all about, how can I serve who's right in front of me in this moment? Knowing to, you know, my faculties where I'm at, I can't be operating from a low vibe. If I'm down here, what am I going to put out to my clients or my students, right? So it is about that. I toy with self-care. I'd love to hear what you two think. I think self-care it's a little watered down, right? I think, like, what the hell does that mean to some, right? Self-care, like, oh, I don't, or I get a lot of, oh, I know I should do that. I know I should. And I'm like, stop shooting on yourself, right? Right there. Stop that language. Stop shooting on yourself. What can you reasonably actually ink in to make a priority for your self-wellness? It's not selfish. You know, it's 100% not selfish, because if you're operating low, you don't have enough to even begin to think about providing for others, right? So what's the language? What do you call it? Like, do you use self-care? I mean, a lot of people are familiar with it. I just feel like it's,
so I think it's something we
down.
need to redefine too. So, I mean, the first step, like, sometimes I tell people, you know, sometimes you need to just go soak your feet, do a foot bath, and give yourself 5 minutes. Sometimes you need to go take a bath or take a walk in the woods. But I think self-care goes even deeper than that. I mean, I think that when you've never done anything for yourself, that's a great first step, right? But I think that self-care goes deeper, as in, we need to start thinking about the way we talk about ourselves. We need to hear those little things that we're saying automatically because we've always said them about ourselves, and then start to change the way we talk about ourselves. I think that's really a lot of self-care. I think self-care goes along the ways of when you're all, you know, people pleasers who are always saying yes to everybody and over giving, to start to learn to say no to others and say yes to themselves. I think that we haven't really been taught real self-care. So when we say self-care, people think about, you know, taking a bubble bath, and yes, that's great. But I think that it just needs to go deeper. I think that's a great first step, and then keep going with it. I think real self-care is starting to learn and love yourself in all ways, and that as in setting boundaries and saying no to things that really, I mean, even if you say, no, not today, you know, I could do this a week from now or tomorrow, but I can't today. And then that's it. You're good. If that person doesn't want to wait till then that's on them, right? You're okay to say no. You don't have to bend over backwards. You know, you can set boundaries and limit. And I think that that's part of self-care, and we don't normally see that as self-care.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, the what I call the tactile, experiential, right? The taking a bubble bath, soaking your feet, whatever, getting outside, all that stuff. Great. Yes. Yeah, dig in there a little deeper, right? If we're not in that core space of that true acceptance, who you are, where you're at, knowing like it's never going to be the same every day, right? Like sometimes getting out of bed and just getting out of bed and showing up, that's great. Great. That was self-care. You change your state. Now you can consider, maybe doing the others, but totally. You just brought up, you just reminded me of something I recently saw. A woman I know posted, and it was her alarm. I don't know if it was hers or someone else, but it was the alarm. And you know how you can name what the alarm is for. It was something, but it was like another day of grind, and it was negative, right? So I was like, oh, OMG, like literally you're starting a day. You're awakening the conscious body by this alarm that you look, and out of the gate, you're like, this sucks, right? Like, what? And so I just said, girl, you got to flip that, and how about what if our alarms, if you use a phone for an alarm, if you use that, we're so grateful for another new day, right? Like that's what we're saying, right? That's what you're
Like
talking about.
today's
Like
going to
that
be a
is,
great day instead.
Yeah.
yes, that's self-care. You are jump starting your day in this state. I mean, I'm totally going to use that, teach the kids and bring this into this workshop I'm doing on the 19th, which I would love. I'm all about getting this viral. And if people want to have a watch party, I'll send you the link, and you can post it. If someone wants to, you pay it's $28 to attend this workshop, and it's going to be a wealth of information. There'll be some documents I'll send out, post, what I'm talking about, the tapping points, the breath work. But I'm all about, like, it came to me when I woke up a couple of days ago. I was like, no, you know what? This doesn't have to be per person. Like, I'd love to have a room full of, 5 people or more, that are all watching this together, right? Because when you start to talk about things, and that is a form of self-care, right? I say you got to name it to tame it. Don't keep it inside. Don't hold this stuff, right? Live with, you don't have to share your whole life with people, but live by sharing. Like, you know what? I am kind of having a struggling time now that I don't have any kids at home. Okay, that's valid. And you know what? So are 3 other people that you know that you don't know that you know, right? So like, if I can get people even together, I'm just, I'm thinking of ways to get these tools far and wide so that people could get a link, they could zoom in and watch it with other people too. It's kind of, there's, create a community of self-care, right? Community care. Maybe that's how I'll start to advertise it. Yeah.
So can you share where we can get your information, like about what you do and about this upcoming community care? I love that. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
I love post it.
Yeah, we can post it too. Yeah.
Awesome. So I am on, I have a Facebook account, Lauren Durso Wellness. That's my Instagram account. I have a website, my first and last name, laurendurso.com. If you go to schedule or just contact me, and I can get that, get this information. But if people are on socials, I'm also on it, been sending out my fall newsletters. So if you want to be added to that, again, contact me. My email is yogalauren@gmail.com. And you can also text me directly, and I can give you my phone number to post as well. And it's 617-817-2988. And that's my professional cell phone.
Yeah, we'll put all your contacts and websites and everything in the comments below so people can find you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And yeah, I'm always about, I call it not only the like cross promotion, but women, women that support, or, women who identifies, women that are supporting each other in this wellness space, in the work life. I call it harmony, not even balance. Balance is really hard to attain. I'm all about things could be upside down and you could still have some harmony, right? So I think, September 19th, this is my kickoff to the launch of these workshop series I'm going to be doing. And really it's taking the tools that I do in private sessions or in class settings and getting it out, through these Zoom workshops. And like I said, if people are local to the Massachusetts area and want to be in person with me while I'm doing the workshop, that's even better, or just as good. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I super appreciate the opportunity to share and hear how you both each, put your goodness and your light out into the world. That I keep saying it so desperately needs it. Someday my hope is to not say that, right? Like, keep putting your light out into this world where we are at a place of peace. But until that happens, we need people like yourselves to be those change makers, truly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we want to start. Like you said, you never know who's needed, right? And everybody needs something a little different, or are going through something a little different, but we're all going through things. And we want to start a community where there's somebody out there who can help you and support you, and we can all do it together. And not only do we hope to match you with somebody you need, but you're going to then contribute to somebody else who's so needed too. So we thank you for sharing your tools with us and, your absolutely wonderful needed work.
Awesome. Thank you. Truly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Exciting. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for today. We thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to see you on episode 10. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.